Welcome to The Call. Tim Searfoss returns for another visit on The Call. He's a renowned director and producer who was previously on this show to discuss his 2021 award-winning film, Break Every Chain. Today, he's here to share his information about his upcoming documentary, 1 Second at a Time. The documentary is based on a true story about a father's heartbreaking loss of his daughter to fentanyl. Please stay tuned to the end of this interview for a word of encouragement.
This particular story is about a father who had a daughter who battled substance abuse for over 10 years. It's heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking story. And what makes the story particularly interesting is that the father had all the resources that he could have to try to help his daughter, and he tried everything. So this documentary really focuses on the mistakes that were made, learning about who Christine Ortol, this is the girl that we focus on, and her family. And we focus on her and why she used substances. A lot of times we look at, addicts and we say, why don't they get a job? Why are they, bums and that kind of thing. And people don't see them as people, and in this documentary, we want you to see them as people. We want you to see that they're more than just that. And that the reason that they're using these substances are because there's much deeper core issues at play. So this documentary is really fascinating because it explores why people use substances, and it helps arm you with tools to sympathize, to destigmatize, so that you understand, hey, this is what's going on. Nobody wakes up wanting to use heroin. That's not a normal thing. And what gets somebody to get to that point? That's what's interesting, and that's what we need to talk about and educate people on, why people are doing these things, and to help them, to be able to help maybe loved ones that might be struggling with it, and what tools do we have available to help someone like that.
So now you met the family, and their story. How deeply did it touch you?
Oh, it was heartbreaking, because we have a father who loves his daughter, a family that loves a daughter, and they tried everything. And it was so frustrating. They went to over 20 different recovery centers. They tried so many therapists, psychiatrists, medications. They were at their wits' end. They had tried everything, and nothing was working. Now, for a small point in time, she actually did get sober for about 3 years. What happened was, through this journey, the father learned that he had been enabling her. He had learned that some of the mistakes were on his end. And he learned that, hey, I've been enabling, I've been in denial about her disease. And so what he ultimately did was, at one point in time, he cuts her off, and he says, you know what, I'm not going to enable you anymore. And he stopped answering his phone. She would call him all the time, asking him for money. He's like, I'm not going to answer the phone anymore. He does this for about 3 days. And she ends up in a park, and she's calling her dad, and she's saying, Dad, I'm hot. It's terrible out here. Come get me. This is so bad. And Dad's going, I'm not going to enable this. I'm not going to enable this. And she hits rock bottom. And when she hits rock bottom, that's when she finally calls her dad and says, after hundreds of calls her dad and says, Dad, I think I'm ready. I'm ready to go to treatment. And that was the beginning for her. For 3 years, she became sober, and that was a really great time for the family, And hearing the story, like I said, is so heartbreaking, because this is the journey of so many people with substance abuse problems, and we're talking about things that will connect with every family that has, and this particular issue affects everyone. Everyone knows somebody who's abused substances, or right now with the fentanyl crisis. The fentanyl crisis is incredible, and so many people are dying because of fentanyl. And that's also something that we're trying to raise awareness about, how they're putting fentanyl now in all the drugs. So right now, people could be, let's say, for instance, you're a college student. Oh, I'm trying to stay up late. Or get some pills from a friend. You don't know where those pills came from. It could be Adderall. I just need some Adderall or something you buy on the street. That is laced with fentanyl. Right now, the U.S. government has said that out of all the pills they've confiscated, that 60% of all the pills they've confiscated had lethal doses of fentanyl. So that means right now, if you take a pill off of the street, you have a 60% chance of dying from it. So it's a huge, huge problem, and many people are dying, and it's really horrible. It's tragic. It's tragic.
So what drove you to want to do this? I mean, did you read this story? How did you find out about it?
Yeah. So I met Mike. He lives in the same town that I live in, Tampa. And I met Mike, and he had seen Break Every Chain, and he reached out to me and he said, I want you to help me tell a story, about my daughter. And when I heard about Christine and I heard about their story, it was such an emotional journey that they went on, and it is such a it's just the perfect story in the sense of it encompasses so many people's stories. It's not really, it's the story of addicts. It's a story of people struggling with substance abuse. And what was unique though is that he, like I said, he had the resources to battle the disease, and even with the resources that he had, it was still impossible for him. And it was because when you're in it, you're just battling this thing and you can't see. It's like fog of war, And so Christine Ortol, who's the girl who's basically the main character, in our story, she had a saying. She said, they say that when you battle a disease like this, that you're battling it, one day at a time. And she said to her dad, I'm not battling one day at a time. I'm not battling 1 hour at a time, not 1 minute. I'm battling it 1 second at a time. And that's where the title for the film comes from, is her saying 1 second at a time is what you're in. It's every second you're trying to fight this thing. And the whole family is at 1 second at a time. Every moment is the phone going to ring? Has my daughter passed? Is somebody, going to tell me, something's happened? And this journey is really takes a huge journey. So we go from Christine starting out young. She's she was the perfect child. She's a great girl. She had a great personality. She was very fun, spirited, and mom and dad got a divorce when she was young, and that divorce left some trauma. And trauma is one of the biggest things that we talk about in this documentary. Now, this documentary, I should say, is more than just a documentary. It feels like a movie. We have a lot of reenactments. It's very dramatic. You get to live kind of the moments that, the key moments of her life. But so trauma played such a huge role. And what we talk about is the importance of recognizing this, because children who have trauma, the more trauma they have, the more likely they are to abuse substances and to get themselves into trouble, and they call these things adverse child experiences. They're called ACEs. So the more of these things you have, for instance, a death in the family, divorce trauma. In this case, she had birth trauma as well. She died when she was born, and she had to be resuscitated. And the mother also died while giving birth. So that was crazy. It's a crazy story. So through that divorce, though, Christine's trust in people, collapsed, and she had pain on the inside that she wasn't outside. She was smiling. She was joyful. The inside, though, she was broken and shattered. And it's the story of so many people, and that what happened to her, that brokenness. So then she starts self-medicating. So now, okay, I have this hole in my heart, I have this problem, I have this pain, I don't know how to deal with it. And abusing substances is what she starts self-medicating, and then by doing that, you're now associating with people who are not good people. You start doing things that you shouldn't be doing to get this medication. So they call that re-traumatization. So you're
Oh,
re-traumatizing yourself, and by doing that, now you're making it worse. Now I got to take more medication for what I just did, or what just happened to me, or what somebody did to me, and now you have to re-medicate. So in the end of her life, she actually ended up getting sex trafficked. Towards the end of her
oh,
life, she disappears. Dad can't find her. He doesn't know where she is. The
oh
family can't
no.
find her. Everyone is searching for her, and he puts out posters, writes out on Facebook, has anybody seen my daughter? And eventually, somebody steps. They're going through phone records. They're looking for her everywhere. Days are going by. They don't know where she is, and she calls her dad out of the middle of the night. Calls her dad out of the blue. It's a number that he doesn't recognize. He answers the phone, and the daughter says, "Dad, I was looking on the internet and I found this place called the Fairy Pools in Scotland. It's a beautiful place. It's so peaceful. I want you to take me there. I know I'll be safe if you take me there." And he says, "Honey, where are you?" And she hangs up the phone.
Oh,
And she calls him. Imagine that heartbreaking, phone call. You don't know where your daughter is. She's telling you she wants to be taken out of there to be somewhere safe. So they end up finding somebody who knows where she might be. They get investigators to look into the house. They find out it's a sex and drug trafficking ring. And they go to the dad, Mike Ortol, goes to the house with him and his wife. Ex-wife. They go to the house, and they get her out of there.
mhm.
And but this was towards the end of her life, and they get her out of there. But you can imagine the trauma that she experienced there. And so they get her out. They try to take her to a rehabilitation center, and then just a few months after that, she ends up ODing on fentanyl.
Oh my.
So it's a tragic, heartbreaking story, of the journey of this disease, of what it's like, and what it's like to have a loved one that's
Yeah.
caught up in this. But part of the story is Mike Ortol's journey. Mike Ortol being the dad, his journey in this whole thing is important, because you can imagine the headspace a dad would have when you go and you pick up your daughter from a place like that,
Yeah.
and he wanted to kill these guys. He
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah.
And he had people who could help him do that,
Yeah.
and he had police and whatever, and they said, "Hey, whatever you want to do." And he had to battle those demons,
Yeah.
and he had to learn to forgive.
Yeah.
And that's where he got closer to God, when he really, really got closer to God. Because in that moment, when he's seeing all this darkness, and he's having these vile thoughts, I could kill them, I could go to jail, it'd be worth it, that kind of thing. And he has to say, no, I have to let go. I have to forgive. I have to let go.
Mhm.
And that to him was his most important lesson, being on the other side of this, is that, all these people that did these things to my daughter, all of the evil that he saw, he had to learn to forgive. He had to learn to overcome. And that's what connected me with the story, is this, redemptive story. But it's raw, and it's real, and it's real life, and it's as just as much as this the Christine Ortol story, it's also the dad story. It's about his journey going through all of this, and finding redemption at the end of it. And what happened was, Christine Ortol, when she was in recovery, they would make you do journal assignments. And so a lot of these journals, she left a lot of journals. So we actually used some of these journal entries in the documentary to talk about with her own words, how she felt and what she was going through. But one of the most pivotal ones that she wrote was, they had her write her eulogy from the perspective of her dad, to let them think about, hey, you could die doing this, So she wrote this eulogy from the perspective of her dad. Her dad found this after she passed. And when he read it, he was so moved by it. One of the things that she said is, I know my dad is going to make a cause out of this. And
Oh,
that's what he's done now, is he's now taken her memory, and he's created a charity. It's called the Christine Ortol Charity. And this Christine Ortol Charity is now what he's using to help others. And one of the big things that he's done is that he has several initiatives, one of them being helping people who are elementary school age children, helping people who deal with elementary school age teachers, pediatricians, trying to help them understand, to recognize the signs of trauma, to recognize, hey, this child could be at risk. If we catch it now, we can help them. They don't have to, battle this. So that's one of the initiatives. The second initiative is with college recovery. So what he didn't know at the time was that there was college recovery programs that were available at university. He wished he could have had that for his daughter. And because so what he's done now is at FSU, which is his alma mater, he's actually made contributions, and they actually built a wing out for college recovery, and he's helped staff people, and they've taken this college recovery program that from just a few handful of kids to over 1,000. Wow. So huge, and of course the final initiative is to help with legislation, because right now these guys are selling fentanyl and they're not getting in trouble for it. And the rules are just way too lax on it, and in the documentary, we actually have a surprise guest, which is we actually found someone who works for the drug cartel, and we interview them.
Really?
And we interview them. Yeah. And we interview, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you making fentanyl that kills people? We ask him these questions, and then ultimately we tell him, hey, by the way, the stuff you made killed my daughter, and you hear what he says about it. And what he says about it is harrowing. It's harrowing, It really
people are going to have to, people are going to have to watch the movie to hear that part. We don't want to give everything away, because we want to make sure everybody's watching this documentary. So now, where is this documentary going to be shown?
Yeah, so we have a premiere on the 27th. It'll be the world premiere is in Tampa, Florida. It's in at the Tampa Theater, and then after that, we're going to be seeking distribution. It'll be available wherever you watch movies. It'll still be a little bit. Probably won't be till the summer that it'll be available. But our hope is to get it out as quickly as possible.
Okay, so the launch is in Tampa, but
yes,
but everybody can watch it more towards the summer. So you will let me know, and then I'll put it in the comments when exactly, so people could be looking for it. This is wonderful.
Absolutely.
You have really gone beyond where I can see, this is amazing. So thank you for doing that and raising awareness in the world, because it's so needed, with fentanyl coming over the borders, and with our kids getting, caught up in that, and especially the lost ones. They don't know what they're taking. They're just they're seeking, acceptance, love, all the things that they feel like they don't have, or brokenness, and they're turning themselves over to drugs. And this is the wrong way to go. And parents need to be aware of what can happen. So thank you for bringing awareness to them. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with today?
When we're talking about substance abuse, the stigma is so bad right now. And a lot of these people are stigmatized. The family doesn't want anything to do with them. They feel stigmatized. And so hopefully you can begin to think about how, hey, they're human beings. These are human beings. They need connection, actually. They don't need for us to shun them. They need, just like the Bible says, to take care of the weak and the oppressed. They are one of those people. And we need to do our due diligence, yes, to try to understand why they're that way, and to try to help them as best as we can.
Paul says in 1 Corinthians 10:13, no temptation has overtaken you except for what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Are you struggling with things in life that tempt you to do wrong? The Lord is always with you, and he will help you when you cry out to him. Do you listen to the call of God? Because God speaks to you every day. Are you listening to the call?